Is dead after an explosion at a Texas power plant.
Goliad County Sheriff's deputies arrest a man accused of stealing church property.
And Governor Abbott appointed former Texas Secretary of State John Scott as interim Attorney General.
We had a few little coastal showers that popped up this afternoon with the heat and the humidity. Are there going to be any more of those? And we'll also be taking a look at the Gulf of Mexico to see what's happening down there. All that coming up in a moment.
And a new soccer club is hosting tryouts for the summer. That's coming up in sports.
You're watching 25 News now at 10. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Don Brubaker.
And I'm Karina Garcia.
New at 10, an Austin woman's 2019 cause of death was ruled undetermined by investigators until this month, when convicted killer Raul Meza Jr. called police and admitted to her murder. KVUE reports in April 2020, DNA from forensic tests linked the death of Gloria Lofton to Meza Jr. This month, when Meza Jr. was wanted for a separate murder in Pflugerville, police charged him for Lofton's murder. Meza Jr. was convicted of murder in 1982 for the death of an 8-year-old girl in Austin. Authorities have identified up to 10 cold cases that could also be linked to him. Meza Jr. now in the Travis County Jail.
A fatal explosion inside a Texas power plant leaves one person dead. The Lumen Oak Grove power plant had a boiler explode right around 8 a.m., killing a contractor in the blast. Authorities say no other employees or contractors were hurt in the explosion, and all are accounted for. It's not yet known what caused the boiler to explode, as the event remains under investigation. Goliad County Sheriff's deputies made an arrest in DeWitt County Tuesday. Philip Mass of Mayersville was taken into custody for burglary. He is accused of stealing property from a northern Goliad County church and is now in the Goliad County Jail.
Governor Greg Abbott appointed John Scott as the state's interim attorney general. When Ken Paxton was impeached by the state house Saturday, he was also suspended from his attorney general duties. Scott most recently served as Texas Secretary of State for Governor Abbott. Scott has successfully tried over 100 lawsuits. The whistleblowers who first raised allegations against Paxton provided information that served as the basis for the 20 articles of impeachment against Paxton. KVUE reports the whistleblowers have not received any money from the $3.3 million lawsuit settlement with Paxton and the state in February. The 4 whistleblowers could now take the case to trial.
Governor Greg Abbott signed into law House Bill 567. The bill, also known as the Crown Act, prohibits race-based hair discrimination in Texas workplaces, schools, and House policies.
This brings us to your viewer poll this evening. Scan that QR code to vote now. The question is, have you experienced any race-based hair discrimination? Yes or no? Let's look at the numbers. 11% of the voters say yes, and 89% of the voters say no. We thank you for voting tonight. Goliad County now ready to proceed with improvements to facilities at all 3 of its campuses. The Goliad Advanced Guard reports this comes after the district's $75 million bond issue passed on May 6th. The bond includes construction of a new middle school in Goliad ISD. Let's take a first look at your weather with First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Mac Perez. And you know, Karina, this is Atlantic hurricane season eve. Mac, we're just hours away.
It's the eve, and you know, it's like the arrival of fall. The first day is not when all the leaves fall. So tomorrow is the beginning of hurricane season in the Atlantic, but then again, I've been watching it for over a month now. We have, of course, the dry line causing activity, a few little showers along the coast, and then this kind of weird thing headed toward Florida. We'll be talking about that coming up a little bit later on. Back to you.
Mac, thank you. The House approved a bill to raise the nation's debt ceiling while cutting some government spending over the next 2 years.
And a major victory for both the White House and Republican leaders as the country tiptoes closer to a historic default on its own bills.
The bill is passed.
Tonight, the House of Representatives passing the crucial debt ceiling bill negotiated between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Joe Biden, aimed at averting the nation's first ever government default.
Tonight, we all made history because this is the biggest cut and savings this Congress has ever voted for.
The compromise suspends the borrowing limit until 2025 and is estimated by the congressional budget to cut $1.5 trillion from the deficit over the next 10 years. But passage of the legislation came with heated pushback from both sides of the aisle. Some members arguing their respective party leaders had agreed to too many concessions.
You know, it's not a victory, it's a surrender.
Voting against this bill is not a vote against the president. It's against the Republican extremism to hijack this country with debt ceiling debates every few years.
The legislation includes rescinding billions of dollars in unused COVID relief and IRS funding, ending Biden's freeze on student loan payments in August, and preserving Social Security, Medicaid, and veterans benefits. Now the bill heads to the Senate, where any one senator could block swift passage. A handful are already considering amendments which could delay the approval past the projected June 5th debt ceiling deadline, when the Treasury Department has estimated that the government will run out of cash to pay its bills.
Every time you turn over the rock, there's something else slimy under it.
I think the Biden-McCarthy debt deal is a disaster for the country.
But in a rare moment of unity on Capitol Hill, both Senate leaders are pushing members not to make any unnecessary delays.
When this agreement reaches the Senate, I'll be proud to support it.
Either we proceed quickly and send this bipartisan agreement to the president's desk, or the federal government will default for the first time ever.
M. Nguyen, ABC News, Washington.
An alarming report from Laredo, where police report the city has passed the number of overdose cases seen at this time last year. Plus, authorities are reporting 3 overdose cases a week. On Monday, 2 more deaths were reported. Police have only identified the 2 individuals as a man and a woman who were found unresponsive in the front seats of a Jeep SUV outside an apartment complex. Preliminary reports indicate both died from a drug overdose.
Whenever we have a death, we work backwards. We try to figure out where the person bought the drugs, and then we try to watch that person and see what that person's doing and see if that person is connected to other victims. And if they are, then we'll try to catch them in the act of selling, and then we'll arrest them.
The acting chief added that the drugs aren't coming from the border. Police are reporting 36 overdose deaths this year so far. In 2022, there were 40 overdose deaths reported in total.
Almost 4 weeks since the deadly mass shooting in Allen, the Allen Premium Outlets reopened this Wednesday morning. The mall stores will be allowed to set their own hours as they reopen. Mall officials announced plans for a permanent memorial remembering the 8 people killed in the shooting. All 8 victims range in ages 3 to 37 years old. The gunman was killed by an Allen police officer who was nearby on an unrelated call. Multiple sources say federal prosecutors have a recording from a meeting where former President Donald Trump admits to having a classified document. The document was reportedly about a potential attack on Iran. On the recording, Trump said he would like to share it, but was aware of his limitations to declassify it post-presidency. The attendees at the meeting did not have security clearances, allowing them to access the classified information. Trump has previously stated he declassified everything and denies any wrongdoing. Convicted murderer Alex Murdaugh returned to a South Carolina courtroom today for charges related to financial crimes. He pleaded not guilty to multiple federal charges during a bond hearing, but his attorney said the plea could change in the future. A week ago, a federal grand jury indicted Murdaugh on multiple charges connected to financial crimes of conspiracy, wire fraud, bank fraud, and money laundering. Murdaugh is currently serving 2 life sentences for the murders of his wife and son.
ERCOT has launched a website designed to keep all Texans informed before, during, and after any possible power interruptions. Known as Texas Advisory and Notification System, or TXANS for short. This website features the current state of the state's electrical grid, as well as any situations where public action is needed. There's also a Weather Watch section for any weather conditions that may impact the electrical grid. Here's some of the top headlines you can read in the Port Lavaca Wave this week. Law enforcement officials made 25 weekly arrests in the month of May. A couple in Rosenberg bought the Navidad Hotel with plans to rebuild the building to its original state. Plus, the Calhoun County Library received an anonymous donation of $15,000. You can read these stories and more at theportlavacawave.com. And stay with us. Coming up on 25 News now at 10. The family of an 11-year-old boy who was shot by police in Mississippi has filed a lawsuit against the city.
Also ahead, a deadly accident turns mysterious after 4 people were killed, including 2 Italian intelligence officers.
25 News Now brings you Storm Prep 2023. Your first warned storm team will take us through this year's hurricane predictions. Chief Meteorologist Mac Perez speaks with descendants of Indianola, a town that was wiped out from back-to-back hurricanes. Adarius McCormick explains just how simple evacuating really is. June 5th on KAVU TV at 6:30 p.m. Storm Prep 2023. Stream it live or on demand on Crossroads Today Plus. View it and our Crossroads Today YouTube page.
Family of an 11-year-old boy shot by a police officer filed a lawsuit against Indianola. 11-year-old Adrian Murray was shot after calling the police at his mother's request. They claim their 4th and 14th Amendment rights were violated. The family is seeking $5 million in damages. In addition, the lawyer representing the family wants the police chief and the officer who shot the boy to be terminated. The officer is currently suspended.
The story of a sunken tourist charter in an Italian lake has taken a surprising turn. The boat sank when it was hit by a water spout Sunday in Italy's Lake Maggiore.
Of the 23 on board, 4 of those died, and all the passengers on the ship were connected to the Italian and Israeli intelligence.
A deadly accident turns mysterious. 4 people were killed, including 2 Italian intelligence officers and a retired Israeli defense official, when a chartered houseboat sank in a sudden storm on Lake Maggiore Sunday. The captain said a waterspout appeared in a sudden storm. The Italian captain's Russian girlfriend also died. The Guduria boat was listed on a boat chartering website for €2,000 a day, with an advertised maximum capacity of 15 passengers. But on the fatal Sunday, there were 21 passengers plus 2 crew members on board. All passengers in some way tied to Italian and Israeli intelligence work, the prosecutor's office said. The survivors said they were celebrating a birthday. Italians Tiziana Barnobi and Claudio Alonzi were active Secret Service agents, the Italian government confirmed. The Israeli citizen Erez Shimoni was retired. Israel's Prime Minister's office called him a dear friend to the country's security forces. The Italian prosecutor said passengers are not under investigation and would not comment on what they might have been doing on the boat. The captain is under investigation for culpable manslaughter. Efforts to salvage the boat are being closely watched by Italian security officials and should provide more clues to the mysterious Sunday outing turned deadly. Barbie Lazzanedo, CNN, Rome.
A new rule proposal from the Department of Transportation would require automatic emergency brakes in new vehicles. The department's National Highway Traffic Safety Administration announced notice of the proposal today. It calls for automatic emergency braking, or AEB, systems on passenger cars and light trucks. This is to dramatically reduce crashes associated with pedestrians and rear-end crashes.
AEB systems are going to be critical to reducing the harm of people outside the vehicle, inside the vehicle, reduce fatalities, injuries, and of course damage. We also hope this will help many crashes be avoided altogether.
If finalized, the rule would save at least 360 lives a year, according to the department, and reduce injuries by at least 24,000 annually, as well as result in a reduction in property damage and less destructive crashes. An intervention to reduce patient falls in hospitals could significantly reduce harm for patients while reducing total costs.
A study published in JAMA Health Forum looked at over 900,000 patient records and found that a fall prevention program had a significant impact in hospitals. On average, the total cost of a fall for a patient is over $62,000, and these costs only differ slightly based on injury level. Researchers found that when the AHRQ-funded Fall Tips program was implemented, it was linked to $22 million in savings at 8 hospitals. After implementing the program, reported falls went down nearly 20%. The researchers say that policies to reduce falls using evidence-based interventions could reduce the frequency of harm and its associated costs. With this Medical Minute, I'm Justin Finch, ABC News.
Here are some of the top headlines you can read in the Cuero Record this week. The Texas Hunger Initiative and the No Kid Hungry program will be providing meals for kids and teens this summer. And longtime Cuero Hospital nurse Wilma Reedy retires, plus a local insurance company provides scholarship to 4 Cuero High School students. You can read these stories and more at DeWittCountyToday.com.
Well, good evening, everybody. Fairly mild evening out there. It's only 75 degrees right about now. We managed to get up to 90 degrees, and guess what? That is the average temperature for this time of year, so we're right at where we're supposed to be. Did you get any of that pop-up rain shower activity today? Well, what are your chances for the next couple of days? We'll have that, and we'll take a look at the Gulf of Mexico coming up in a moment. Stay tuned. Well, good evening, everybody. This afternoon we saw a little bloom of showers, as you saw right about there. Nothing significant. These are caused, I call them garden variety showers because they sort of pop up in the late afternoon, caused by heating. So we've got enough humidity in the atmosphere, you're wearing it in the morning, and then they pop up in the afternoon, but they're not big enough to actually bring down some cool air to the ground, so they basically just add to the humidity. We had some here in the Crossroads and also some up in Houston. Tonight, the only really big stuff that's happening around the state is these big storms coming off the mountains of northern New Mexico. They're rolling into the Panhandle, and if you've got anybody that's a tech radar, they're probably getting some stormy weather right now. In fact, all of this area is now under a flood warning. You see in green, so that includes Amarillo, and these maroon spots are actually still getting some severe weather up there. Other than that, it's been fairly quiet across the state, and that's why this is in gray, Dallas and Houston. They're air pollution advisories because the winds have been so light over the area. Now, when we have high pressure on top of us and we're under it, it sort of sinks the atmosphere down. So there's really nothing to disperse all that stuff that we make at the surface every day. And so, yeah, big city problem right about there. Over the last couple of days, we've been watching a system out in the Gulf. Now, remember, we're under high pressure here, so that means that we have low pressure here. Okay, right about here, we actually have a circulation of this little storm here, and we've been watching it very carefully to see, okay, are you going to do it or not? But you can see how it winds up, it drops down along the west coast of Florida, brings heavy rain to portions of Cuba, and then is forecast to cross over the southern tip of Florida with about 4 to 6 inches of rain. So it's a bit early in the season. It's not going to be a named storm or anything like that. Nonetheless, it's heavy rains, big tropical rains, you know what I mean, but not a wind issue at all. And you're going to see more and more of these little yellow lines, okay? These are isobars at higher levels, and so what you basically say where the lines are going is where the wind is going, and that's where the storm is going to follow. So you saw that dip for us, then you saw the rise, and so that's where the storm center is. But you can see how all these clouds are moving right along these lines. So these lines are going to be like the railroad lines. Wherever they go, that's where the storm follows. So you can see how this stuff is going to go up and over and across. And so anything in the tropics is way down in the equator and a long way off. So there's not going to be a quick start for tomorrow's beginning of the tropical storm season. What we have right now is fairly quiet weather because of the high pressure on top of us, and that gives us relatively light winds. We're looking at southeast winds in the afternoon, only 10-15, which is normal, and that brings our seas up to 2.2 to 3 feet and keeps our bays on the slightly choppy side, so not bad at all. So 90 is our temperature. We're going to be looking at that for quite some time, probably till October. And then we're going to look at partly cloudy skies with maybe a 10% chance of a pop-up shower these 3 days, but a little bit better chance as we get on the other side of the weekend for some slight afternoon showers popping up in the afternoon heat. That is your 7-day forecast. Just want to remind everybody, we got the QR code. Scan that on your phone and put crossroadstoday.com on your phone and take us wherever you need to go. And now it's time for Gino and Sports.
Thanks, Mac. The home of the Fighting Sand Crabs is closed. We see why, but also the Victoria Generals had their first game of the day. We see how they did after the break. At a Crossroads, a newly founded soccer club is hosting a tryout for both boys and girls starting early next week. The Corpus Christi Sharks have been around for multiple years, but this is only the beginning for the Sharks in Victoria. The Corpus Christi Sharks Academy Director Gus Alfaro said this opportunity is valuable for multiple reasons.
To me, it's value because we can expose your kids to potentially get a scholarship. So you think about it, I'm investing money in my kid. In return, you're going to get a scholarship of $80,000. So there's your investment. There's your time. So I think that's what's going to help this academy to help these kids to get better.
In order to get one of those scholarships Alfaro spoke of, he said the first thing that one of the coaches are looking for is good grades. The club would get the opportunity to play against teams in San Antonio and various other areas, including colleges for the older athletes. Alfaro and his son Nick, who recently signed to play college ball, knew they could bring something to the area.
Realized they didn't have nothing either, so we're like, you know what, Nick, recruit some of your high school friends and let's figure out who goes to the other high school. Let's put teams together. They're always east and west. To me, it's Victoria. I'm going to say Victoria because if you make one strong team, Victoria represents, it's Victoria strong versus just east or west.
The academy will be having tryouts next week starting Tuesday, June 6th and continuing through Thursday, June 8th for both the boys and the girls. The team has ties with soccer clubs from all around the world, including Arsenal from England and Austin FC, which is a few hours away. The top athletes in the group can have the opportunity to play for those clubs if they are good enough. If you would like more information, go to our website, crossroadstoday.com. The track and football field at Sand Crab Stadium in Port Lavaca will be closed for an exciting reason. Sand Crab Stadium is replacing its turf. The existing turf has been there for 9 years, and the normal life of turf is 10 years. But due to having to do repairs to it last year and years prior, it was decided to replace it this summer. The new turf will have better padding and be cooler to practice on and play on. Calhoun head football coach and athletic director Richard Whitaker said he and the athletes are excited about it. The project is expected to be finished in 6 weeks, and it was approved a little over a month ago by the spring board. And the Victoria Generals played their game tonight against the Baton Rouge Rougarou, and they would fall 5-4. They were leading heading into the 9th inning, but a walk-off would go on and win the game. They have their first home opener on Sunday at 7:05. Well, that's your sports. Don and Karina, back to you.
Thanks, Gino. Now stay with us. Coming up on 25 News Now at 10, we'll take a last look at your weather. Plus, a NASA study team presented early findings on UFOs in a public meeting.
The panel says more data is needed to determine the origins of UFO sightings. The 16-person study panel presented their early findings in a public meeting today. They say more high-quality data and well-calibrated instruments are needed to properly investigate potential UFO sightings, now referred to as unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs. The panel also found the stigma associated with reporting UAP sightings may hinder efforts to determine their origins. Wildfire smoke has floated from Nova Scotia, Canada to parts of the Northeast. The haze and elevated ozone layers prompted an air quality alert for New York City throughout tonight. A southwestern wind was carrying the smoke about 300 miles from Nova Scotia. Aerials show a band of haze and smoke visible behind the city's skyline. The EPA issued an air quality advisory today for Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Rhode Island. And frankly, I did see an air quality alert for the Houston area, for different counties around the Houston area
We
today.
just talked about it because, I mean, we don't have enough strong wind right now like we have in the summertime to just blow it all away. So it just sort of hangs there. And it's at the point where man is overwhelming the ability of nature to just distribute this. So it's part of our problem. Pardon me. Gino and I have the coughs, and she's got the flu.
Little sniffles.
And we're just minutes away from the start of Atlantic hurricane season.
He's really excited about this.
Well, I'm not excited. I'm just letting people know.
Should we have a parade or something?
Oh, no, not for this hurricane season.
Yes, at midnight tonight, folks, at 12:01, it's the beginning of the Atlantic 2023 hurricane season. We got a chance for a few little showers over the next couple of days, probably less than a 20% chance for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and then a little bit better. But these are little garden variety pop-ups that are no threat, no serious problems, and really not big enough to actually cool us down. So we'll be hovering near the 90-degree mark from now until October the 3rd.
Thanks, Mac. Alrighty, now 2 Iowa students celebrated their last day of school in style. Today, 7th grader Bryce Bass and his classmate rode to and from school on a horse. The pair started the 4-mile ride at 6:30 a.m. and arrived to their junior high school at 7:45 a.m. Bass said this is a tradition they came up with 3 years ago. He even convinced one of his favorite teachers to hop on the horse.
Kind of just been this running joke, and they asked me to do it, and I kind of jokingly said, oh yeah, I'll do that, that'll be fine. And I kind of forgot about it until I pulled up this morning, and they were just sitting there, and I thought, oh, guess I'm gonna have to do it. It's my last day here, so figured might as well.
Bass says he plans to continue the tradition for years to come. Wow, that seems like a Texas story. Alrighty. Well, thank you for joining us for 25 News Now at 10. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Crossroads Today.
Join us for 25 News Sunrise at 5 a.m. Good night, everybody.